In physical geography assignment number 4, you are going to be using Google Earth data to explore climate and climate classification. You're going to do that through a file that I have placed on the assignment, and that name of the file should be KEPIN 1991 to 2020. And when you open it up, you won't see anything right away, but you can easily zoom in and see lots of little symbols appear. Each of these represents a different weather station in the entire United States, and each of them have been classified based on the KEPIN climate classification system by Brian Bretschneider, a local climatologist. Now, you are going to use the climate classification here to explore both classification and also interesting patterns that you find in some place. And I am actually going to zoom into the Denver, Colorado area. And I know that that area has some interesting differences in climates in it. You can see that there are different colored symbols and shapes of symbols spread all throughout this area. And you're going to be looking at an area that's similar to this in the United States, someplace where there's an interesting variation that you can use both to explain the climate and also use to talk a little bit about classification. If I click on any one of these little symbols right here, it should bring a pop-up. And I'm going to click on this one right here, which is the Lakewood Weather Station. And it tells me that this area is a warm steppe climate, or in the KEPIN system, a BSH climate. And you will have to look at the textbook in order to understand this. And in the textbook, there is an appendix that explains the KEPIN system and relates the system of lettering to what I've talked about in the Climate Regions lecture. You can see that for this particular place, the average temperature for each month of the year has been given. That looks like the maximum is in July at 72.8, of course, when solar radiation is at its maximum. And then the coolest temperature appears to be in December at 32.3 degrees when we have solar minimum taking place, though of course there is a lag time both in the heating and cooling, as we've talked about. You can also see the precipitation for each month that is given in inches right here. For any arid area, you'll also find that there is a secondary classification. You can just ignore that for the purposes of this assignment. Again, you are to find a place like the Denver area in the United States where there's some interesting variation. And just going around here, you can see that there are a number of different, these are microthermal climates. You can see the DFC, continental subarctic climates. We have some of these arid climates, and then we also have this gray color right here, which shows mesothermal climates. So a lot of different things are happening here. And what I want you to do is I want you to explain this variation. And I also want you to use the classification system that you see here to talk a little bit about classification. And you're going to do this by finding a place like this and then capturing an image of it. Which of course you have some experience doing. You will use the file save and save image. Remember that if you would like, you can turn the various map options off, like the title and the legend. You're not going to save this map configuration right here. You're going to click Save Image instead. And I'm just going to save this image on my desktop, and I will call it Denver Climate. Now I'm going to pull this image up in some sort of image editing software. It's really up to you what you want to use. You could use Photoshop, you could use PowerPoint, you could use Google Sheets, you could use some native software that's found on your PC or Mac. There are lots of different types of software out there that allow you to make edits to an image like this. And the types of image edits that I would like you to do would be to do things like draw lines or draw shapes around particular areas so that we can see where some of the clear dividing lines are in an area. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to use the pen, and I'm going to increase the thickness a bit and make it very obvious to see. And I'm just going to draw a line right through here that shows where there seems to be a big difference between the more microthermal climates in the west and then the other climates over here in the east. And this is a sort of edit I want you to do to use in discussing what you are seeing. In addition to this, because I've got this sort of confusing area right around Denver where there appear to be a whole bunch of different climate types taking place, I'm going to draw a shape, and I'm going to just draw a circular shape right here, and it's made it as a black shape, but I can change that if I want to using paint at least, and I'll sort of give it a blue color. So that there's a differentiation between the red and the green. And then if I wanted to, I could also put some text on here based on what I wanted to say about the area, microthermal here versus mesothermal here. It's really up to you how you are going to make edits to your image. I just want to make sure that you are highlighting things very specifically so that you can refer to them in your discussion. In your discussion, make sure that you really make a strong effort to explain the differences that you see here. Why is it that the areas in the west of this part of the map have those cooler microthermal climates? Is it elevation? Is it latitude? Why might they have more precipitation, as you'll see in many areas? Is it orographic? Is it a maritime influence? You've learned a lot about the various things that create different types of climate and climate areas and atmospheric processes. Use those. And I'm going to go back to Google Earth here very quickly. Make sure that you also use some of the terminology of climate types as well. You don't have to use the Köppen system and refer to DFB climates, but you could talk about continental climates. You could talk about mesothermal versus microthermals, steppe versus desert climates, whatever it is that's important to your area. In addition to the explanation that you give me, I also want you to reflect a little bit on the principles of classification. How did classification help you to understand the patterns that you see here? How does it help to differentiate some of the things that ultimately you could explain? In addition, you might want to reflect a little bit on some of the problematic parts of classification. For example, clearly we're on such a boundary area here in the Denver area that classification is just changing within a couple of miles. And that means that there's a little bit of ambiguity here about one particular place versus another and what its climate is, and shows that climate classification doesn't always really help us understand these very fine level changes that might happen. So submit your essay along with the edited image and into Blackboard, and make sure that you check out the rubric as you proceed with your work. That's all. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, I am happy to give you advice, help you out, make extra videos for you.